And I'm joined now by Dr. Thusiyan Nandakumar from London. He's a political analyst and the editor-in-chief of the Tamil Guardian. Doctor, the whereabouts of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa were unknown for the last several days. What do you make of this news that he's reportedly fled the country?
Yeah, so we're just hearing reports from the Tamil Guardian and from journalists in the Maldives that he has landed in the Maldives. Now, it's been a very, very turbulent few days, if not past 24 hours for Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Reports suggest that on Monday evening, he tried to flee via the airports. The US Embassy has confirmed that they refused to grant him a visitor visa, and staff at the airport refused to serve him. So unfortunately, for him at least, he was not able to leave Sri Lanka. He also, his authorities tried to gain access to land a Sri Lankan Air Force jet in India. The Indian government has reportedly denied that they would allow a Sri Lankan Air Force jet to land at a civil airport in India. So he tried India, he tried the USA, and it looks like just moments ago he's officially landed in the Maldives. Now, the question is, why is Gotabaya Rajapaksa fleeing, especially when he was due to give up power and resign from the post of president just a few hours' time? And it's all to do with this idea of immunity as head of state. So as head of state, currently, he's immune from prosecutions. But the moment he gives that up, he can be prosecuted for a whole range of crimes, from financial crimes to genocidal ones. We have to remember this is a man who, as Secretary of Defense, oversaw the killings of tens of thousands of Tamils, ran a network of white vans that were responsible for abducting people, openly boasted on British TV that hospitals could be targets in a war. So there's a lot of crimes that he could be prosecuted for, and we suspect that's the reason he's fleeing before he has to resign from office.
Is there potential danger of a power vacuum in the country? What do you think needs to happen to create stability within the government to get Sri Lanka out of this financial ruin?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a financial ruin. It's also a political crisis, and there's a lot of talk about the next steps. Now, Sri Lanka's protesters have made very clear that they want to see a political culture change, but what that looks like hasn't been defined yet. And I think this is where all parties, including the Tamils in the northeast and the singular parties in the south, and the protesters, have to be clear that what the next steps we need to be accountable, need to be transparency. There needs to be new political culture that has representation for all, that devolves powers, and really changes the structure of the island as a whole. Sri Lanka, for too long now, has gone through decades of instability and outright violence. And if it needs to change, well, it's up to the politicians who are due to meet today and over the coming days to really take the lead on that.
Given all the instability that people have been through, do you think that they will accept a new unity government, whatever the politicians come up with? Or do you think people are going to be deeply skeptical?
Well, I think they'll be skeptical if we see the same old figures and the same old faces come back into power. So Ranil Wickremesinghe is a six-time prime minister. There's talks of him taking over the presidency, but protesters burnt down his home just a few days ago. There's talks of old singular politicians, some of whom are notorious racists, figures in the military who are again accused of war crimes and human rights abuses, coming into the political spotlight now. I think what needs to happen is actually all of that's got to go, and we need to see a new wave, a new cultural representation. Unless we have new faces, faces who pledge and will stand by these new principles of accountability, of transparency, of building together a new Sri Lanka that respects all the different nations and peoples there, it won't happen. And I think the protesters should reject anyone that's got a history of rights abuses, got a history of corruption and embezzlement, and has a history of racism, and who isn't committed to a new, brighter future.
All right, Dr. Thusiyan Nandakumar joining us from London. Thank you.
Thank you.